Dick, are you on or not?
Doesn't look like it.
Are you trying to call him, Jorge? Or Peter?
I think Peter is ready.
Remind him. Unless he's having, for some reason, I'm trying to pull up internet and I can't. Yeah, but Peter?
I was just going to say, I got off the phone with Counselor Olson and he's still trying to get in.
Okay. All right. Yeah, for some reason, I was just trying to pull up our city website and I couldn't get on. So is anybody, have you pulled it up on, where you're on your iPad, so you're on this link, don't lose connections. Don't try it. But no, and I tried it on my phone too, and I wasn't able to get our city website. Unless it's just mine, but I've tried both devices, so I wonder if Dick's having the same problem.
Well, I had trouble earlier trying to look at the agenda. I didn't want to open the agenda. It took forever to open.
Okay.
But that was a couple hours ago.
Where is there? I want to say hi, Marilyn.
Must be on mute.
Yeah. I was going to say, I knew she couldn't stay away.
So any luck with Dick?
Well, why don't we get going? It's 4:03 and he'll have to take a remedial computer 101 class or something.
Well, it could be the internet. So maybe Peter just have a call in and.
Yeah, I'll have, I don't think it's the internet because I can get on fine and I think there's a number of people, but I'll see. He said that if he couldn't get his desktop to work, he was going to give me a call back.
Okay.
Our IT guy used to call that user error, and he was usually right.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order and good afternoon, everyone. And could we, I think Gabe is taking minutes. And Gabe, could we get a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilors Coburn?
Here.
Bessie Johnson?
Here.
Alex Johnson?
Here.
Kellum?
Here.
Olson? And Sykes?
Here.
5 councilors present, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm trying to find everybody on the screen here. Okay. Gotcha. Business from the public. There wasn't anything that anyone had submitted by noon today. And unless that somebody needed to bring up from business from the public, I don't see anybody listed there, but staff, I believe. Okay. So our first agenda item for discussion is Safe Routes to School grant application. Ron Irish. And is Ron on? There he is. Hello, Ron.
Good afternoon. So ODOT has a Safe Routes to School grant program on a 2-year cycle. Their current cycle is open for applications, and the applications are due at the end of this month. The grant this year, the program is focusing on 2 different topics, and you kind of have to hit both of them in order to have a successful application, is the way it appears. So one of them is similar to last year, in that they're focusing on schools that have a high percentage of students that need meal subsidies. So, low-income students is what they're targeting. And the second factor they're targeting are bicycle and pedestrian projects that serve schools that are on major high-volume roads, either lots of lanes or high speeds. And so when staff was looking at potential projects, we tried to identify those locations. And we also took a look at where we might have matching funds available. So projects where we're able to identify a source that wouldn't disrupt something that was already programmed. And so we identified two potential applications. So we described them a bit in your agenda packet. The first one I'll talk about is a sidewalk infill program on Geary Street. So it's a section of Geary roughly a half mile long. It extends at the north end from Grand Prairie Road to the south at 34th Avenue. If you're familiar with that section, most of it lacks sidewalk. There are pieces of sidewalk in places, but I would estimate 75–80% of it does not have sidewalk. It's within a mile of 3 different elementary schools. The closest one, the one that would benefit the most, seems to be Lafayette. That school meets the qualifications of the program in terms of low-income students. The cost for that project, we've estimated at about $1.6 million. The way the grants are structured this year, if you have a high enough percentage of low-income students at the school, grant funds will fund up to 80% of the cost of the project. So in this case, Lafayette has a high enough percentage of students that meet that threshold that the eligibility would be 80% grant funding. The complicating factor in this particular project on Geary, and probably the reason that even today it doesn't have a lot of sidewalk, is that it lacks the right-of-way to put it in. And the places where we have had infill sidewalk installed, it's because we've been able, for one reason or another, a partition, a development application, we've been able to have the property owners dedicate a strip of land enough to be able to put the sidewalk in public right-of-way. So most of the road lacks that right-of-way. And so this particular project, in addition to doing infill sidewalk, would also necessitate quite a bit of right-of-way acquisition. Roughly 29 lots would be involved. We'd be looking at right-of-way takes on the order of 3 feet on the east side of the property of the road, up to 6 feet on the west side. So along the corridor, that's a fairly sizable piece. And if you can kind of imagine, if you've got 29 property owners and you're trying to see if they want to dedicate right-of-way, not all of them are going to be willing. And so no doubt there would be some troubles and acquiring the right-of-way for it. We could, if we proceed with that project, end up in a situation where we might be using eminent domain on some of them if we couldn't negotiate all of the right-of-way. The second project, and just to give you an overview of them, second project is the extension of a multi-use path on the north side of Queen Avenue between Periwinkle Creek and Queen Avenue. A distance of about 350 feet. It's a project that would make kind of the diagonal path crossing that exists today across the Queen and Geary intersection better. And if you can kind of envision a pedestrian or a bicyclist southbound on that path approaching Queen Avenue, if you wanted to continue along that route, you would end up on the wrong side of the road. Right? You'd either be riding on your bicycle on the sidewalk, or you'd be in the bike lane going the wrong way, or you'd have to cross 5 lanes of Queen Avenue to get over to the correct side of the road. So that project would extend the path over to the intersection. Would not involve any right-of-way acquisition. The path would basically occupy the space that today is occupied by a combination of the existing sidewalk and the existing bike lane on the north side of the road. So that space is about 12 to 14 feet. It would just be converted into a multi-use path as opposed to a separate sidewalk and bike lane. It also is eligible for funding at 80%. Sunrise would be the school that would benefit. In addition to the path construction, the project would also put in some pedestrian activated flashing lights at 2 pedestrian crossings that are closer to the school from Geary. So I think one would be at Main Street, the second one would be at Thurston. Both of those currently have median islands, but neither one of them has a pedestrian activated light. We took both projects and ran them past the Traffic Safety Commission and the Bike Ped Commission just to get their input on them. And when we initially heard about them, both commissions were kind of split about which project they preferred. Very often ODOT will ask you to prioritize, which of your applications you would prefer to get. So the question to the two commissions was, if we happen to apply for both, what do you think our preference should be? And once again, they were split initially. After they discussed it for a while, pretty much unanimously in both cases, both commissions came around to prioritizing the Geary project over the Queen Avenue project. The reasons were it was longer, would benefit more schools, was a project that ultimately, one way or another, at some point in time, the city will have to figure out how to put sidewalk on the road, whether it's triggered by a future street reconstruction project or some other change. At some point, the city will have to put it in. That's why that project is in our TSP. The Queen Avenue project, the PATH project, also a project in our TSP. So in both cases, both projects eligible for SDC funds for use for matching funds, and there's enough funds in the SDC account and in those particular projects to cover them if we decide to move forward with them. So the question before you today is whether we should apply for both applications or just one of the applications or neither of the applications. And with that, I'll stop and answer questions.
Okay, Desi?
Okay, Ron, I would vote definitely for Geary. I know that street well, and we have kids going up and down that street all the time. And I don't know why parents don't teach their kids to walk on the right, on the correct side of the road. It would save, this and problems. But we have kids going up and down all the time, even families. It has needed sidewalks for a long time. But a question is, why is it, I think you said 3 feet on the east and 6 feet on the west? Why is that?
The east side is a side that already has some sidewalk installed, and virtually all of the existing sidewalk on the east side is curbside, no landscape strip. And so the intent on the east side of the road would be to continue that pattern, stick with curbside sidewalks. That takes less right of way than if they were set back.
Okay.
The reason we're proposing 6 feet on the opposite side and setback on the opposite side is because ODOT and the people that review and award these grants typically don't like curbside sidewalks. And so our perception is that if we on a side of the road where we didn't have any sidewalk now, if we propose curbside sidewalk, that the likelihood of that grant being funded is reduced. And so that's the difference in the right-of-way takes on both sides and why we looked at different approaches on the two different sides of the road.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, we have sidewalk in front of our place, but I don't think that, I'm hoping that nobody complains. Of course, if you're given right away, you're given right away. I mean, but it's just such a needed, the street is so busy and they do not obey the speed limit. And so it's a dangerous street. I mean, I guess it's an arterial, is that right? Or is that a collector?
I think it's a major.
It's a what? Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's needed. The one on Queen to Periwinkle, I don't see the big push for that. I think Geary Street's a more better. That's real good English. It's a better project because just for safety reasons. It's been that way a long time. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Rich and then Bill.
Yeah, I get come at it from a little different perspective. Has there been a safety problem? I mean, you say it's unsafe. Have there been a bunch of accidents or that kind of thing? Is it demonstrably unsafe or is it just feel unsafe?
Yes.
Yeah, there hasn't been a high pattern of crashes, ped or bicyclists, on either of those two roads. We've gotten historically complaints about the road system on both of these projects. They've tended to be, and when it's pedestrian issues, they tended to be not the sidewalk, but rather crossings. And it was in regard to some of those issues that not too long ago, we did a curb extension and a pedestrian activated flashing light system on Geary Street, just north of this segment at 24th. So we have the same issues on the pedestrians crossing the section between Grand Prairie and 34th Avenue. There's no crosswalks on that section. There's no stop control. The way the grant's structured right now, the application, we would be putting in the PED activated flashing light systems and crosswalks at, I think, 28th and 31st. So we'd kind of end up with an even pattern. But in answer to your question, do we have can I point to a high number of accidents on that corridor? The answer is no.
Well, secondly, this is part of, normally this is an area of people's property where they have had to give it up in the past, right? I mean, it's from the curb to, quote, back a ways. That has been part of the city's for all the new things on my street, on any new development that is demanded by the city, and the sidewalks and so forth are put in and paid for by the property owner eventually. But we're not charging the property owner anything here, right? Because it's putting out STPs.
Yeah, there would be no charge to the property owners. As I mentioned, there's some sidewalk on the corridor already. That sidewalk generally has been installed by the property owners when they did some kind of a land use decision, a partition or a site plan application. And in those situations, they dedicated that right way to the city. They didn't get anything in return. And they were responsible for the sidewalk construction and the expense. This particular project, we would be doing right-of-way acquisition and paying them for the right-of-way. And then the grant program, the combination of the ODOT Safe Routes to School grant and the city's matching funds would cover the construction costs. So no out-of-pocket costs for any of the property owners along the corridor. And the ones that do dedicate or have to dedicate right-of-way would be compensated for it.
Okay, I guess I point out everybody else has to. Why shouldn't they have to, I guess, at this point? That's all I know.
Okay, Bill?
Ron, you mentioned that ODOT doesn't like the sidewalk right on the back of curb. Why is that?
You know, for a couple of reasons. The first one is purely engineering related. And when the sidewalk's at the back of curb, it makes the design of the sidewalk at driveways more difficult to do and have it comply with ADA regulations in terms of cross slope. And so very often what you'll see is either, the entire sidewalk is depressed as it approaches the driveway, and the entire driveway open is depressed so that it's essentially flat. Or more commonly, you will see a sidewalk flare out behind and get wider at the driveway approach to provide a flat area at the back of the driveway. And so in one case, you're creating where you just depress the back of the approach, you're creating a kind of a vertical change that pedestrians have to go over. And in the other case, you're making the pedestrians go out of direction to walk around the desired path. And that's kind of the technical reason for it. I think there's also generally an aesthetic component and a pedestrian comfort component where they believe that the sidewalk is set back from the curb of the landscape strip. The pedestrians are farther away from the moving vehicles and just perceive it as a more enjoyable place to be than directly next to the curb. So I think the combination of the two factors, but there's definitely a bias at ODOT for the setback sidewalks. And the city's development code for new development shares that bias. We require the exact same thing.
Well, it makes sense, and I appreciate the explanation. I hadn't thought about the technical aspect, but I understand what you're saying. It is challenging. I guess the two negatives, it means you have to buy more property or compensate the property owner. But the other thing is that these beautification strips, and I'm using air quotes for those, they end up being a weed patch in most places. I mean, people don't take care of them. And, you know, do I landscape it? Do I put lawn in there? Is it just rock? But quite honestly, I think that ODOT's concerns and the city's concern outweigh those two issues. So I'll just conclude by saying I agree with Bessie. Geary Street seems the way to go.
Mhm. So with that I agree with Geary Street. I also agree that Queen, I mean, if we did go out for both, have had many complaints about the Thurston Street school crossing along there and that main street. So I think if we could make that accessible, if we could be able to factor both projects in, would be great. Sort kind of Rich, your question on sort of having the property owners pay for it. Normally in the past, when we form an LID, usually it's because there's no grant money that's going to be applied to it. It'd be all city funds, and then that would be a need, you know, to do the project, that you'd be getting the property owners to kick in on it. But there would also be developable property along there where the new development would be contributing to it. This section of Geary Street, all those homes are mostly 50s, 60s. They were there when it was a country road, and just a little 2-lane road with ditches. And then it was approved years ago, and I believe that was done probably in the 70s, was to make the put in the curb and gutters and widen the road then, and with middle turn lane. So that kind of took away the need then for the sidewalks, and there was right away. So I understand normally property owners should pay for their own sidewalks, but this is a little bit more of a unique situation because it's been a built out area of Albany for many years, and it has a turn lane in the middle of the road, which is not a normal city street, a local street then on that. So I agree, Geary Street, this would be wonderful. Agree with Bessie. I see the kids just walking side by side in the bike lane. I mean, I take Geary Street a lot. I lived this area of town my whole life. And so there is the need to be able to have it more safe for not just even school kids, but all pedestrians. But I do think Queen needs to be addressed also. But any other questions? Dick? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there phone poles, power line poles going to be in the sidewalk there? Or are they out of the way?
Good question.
They're going to be in the way in many cases. And on the side of the road where we end up with setback sidewalks, they'll end up in the landscape strip, and there won't be as much of a problem in that case. On the side where we have curbside sidewalks, we'll end up having to widen the sidewalk behind the pole to make sure that we have enough extra width there to meet ADA standards. And so we're probably not in a position of relocating the poles. There's basically no place else to put them. If we wanted to relocate the pole, we would be buying even more right of way or acquiring even more easements. We would have to do it for the entire corridor to get the poles to line up. So it's probably simpler to just widen the sidewalk around the few poles that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back in the day, we argued long and loud about what we were going to do about all those poles. And we finally decided the thing to do was just not build the sidewalks, which I don't think was the right decision. But that's why there aren't any sidewalks there on Geary Street. I'm glad we're building them, by the way.
Okay. Bill, and then Alex, is that your pen or just paper you're putting up?
No, I'm waving so I can get your attention.
Okay. Use a pen. it looked for some reason it was giving you a shadow. So, yeah, go ahead, Alex, and then Dale.
So, Ron, a couple of them. I do like the idea of doing the Geary Street first, but I do second that we need to have those crossings, the lighted crossings, activated crossings, because I drive through that for business. You know, for over 2 years, I've been driving through there, and several times kids will just jump off the curb and walk across the street. And it'd be nice to have, especially when in the fall when it gets dark, and it gets darker earlier. And the thing is that one of the questions is trees. Are we going to lose any trees along that corridor that will be impacted by adding those sidewalks? And the third part would be, what's on average will we be paying for those particular that space between on each property?
And in terms of trees, we haven't done an inventory to see exactly what's in the space where the sidewalks would end up going. It's an area that's a mix of a narrow strip of right-of-way and private property right now. And in virtually every case, the property owners, to one degree or another, have landscaped it. So there's going to be, shrubs, flowers, grandma's rose bush, the occasional tree perhaps. We'll encounter all of those things if we install sidewalk along the road. I forgot the second question.
What's the estimated cost per? Is it case by case, or do you have a set number per lot that we're willing to pay?
It's probably not an identical amount in every case. The lots are of different widths, and so we'll be getting different areas. And so I would expect that we'll end up we program into the budget the need to do appraisals as part of the negotiation process. I would expect that the basic per square foot costs for the land will be similar across most of the corridor. It may change a little bit if you get to sections that aren't single family lots, and there's some pieces up just south of Geary on the east side that are commercial, so that per square foot cost may be a little bit different. And there will be other items at each lot that we may end up negotiating for compensation. For instance, the trees, the landscaping, sprinklers. I mean, every negotiation with every property owner is different. So I think we would try to stay as similar as we could in terms of per square foot cost.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't expect that every property owner would see the exact same size check at the end of the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bill?
On that subject, Ron, could you have a no-cost easement? I'm thinking if I owned a house, and it would be a plus to have a sidewalk put in, particularly if it didn't cost me anything.
That's a negotiating strategy that we have used on occasion on pieces of this road to the north. When we put in sidewalk several years ago as infill, starting from the mall and heading south, we would offer the property owners, we would offer to install the sidewalk at city expense if they granted us a sidewalk easement. We didn't even ask for right-of-way, just a sidewalk easement. And we were generally successful when we made that offer. Not in every case. Sometimes it took a while, but generally that was successful. In this particular case, because of where the funds, ODOT's funds are coming from, those funds have to be spent in public right-of-way and not easements. And so we won't be able to negotiate for easements here because of the type of grant funds involved. But we will be able to make the same essential pitch to the property owners that they're not paying for anything, that at some point in the future, particularly the larger lots, maybe had some redevelopment potential, that maybe had the potential to split at some point in the future, that if they were to have done that and we don't do this project, they will be responsible at that point for putting in the sidewalk. So we'll have a similar argument for sidewalks, but not for right-of-way.
Boy, Rich, you got to love that. Your complaint was that they're not paying anything for it, and now they're going to get paid. That doesn't seem right. That's a battle for a different day, I guess. I don't know.
Well, my issue is not whether or not somebody pays. It's whether some people have to pay and other people get it something that other people have to pay for free. I mean, it's, treating everybody the same.
The only real way to address that is to not do the project as with a grant, but as the mayor mentioned, do it with an assessment district. You would still, in an assessment district, if those property owners are not going through a land use decision, you would still have to pay them for the land. I don't believe there's anything that would keep you in an assessment district from them turning right around and assessing them for the value of the land. In theory, you could pay them $5,000 for the land, turn around, form an assessment district, bill them for that same $5,000 plus a 10% administrative fee plus a construction cost. So, but that's really the only way to get there, to have property owners pay when they're not making a land use decision, is an assessment district.
I
And
understand.
we
the
take the
problem.
blame for it.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
we're always going to take the blame for it, Dick.
City council.
Yeah, local improvement districts are ugly. We do not want to go that route, so, but they're like one of the worst things to go through. So for counselors, but, okay, any other questions? And if not, the question was if you wanted to do one project, both projects, or none.
Yeah, the question was, should we apply for
Apply.
one or both or neither?
Yeah.
The staff recommendation was to apply for both. And if they ask us for a preference, if you indicate a preference, we'll tell them. If there's one of the projects that you don't want us to do, then tell us that. We'll just apply for one of them.
Okay.
I say both, but Bessie?
Yeah, I would say go for both, ask for both also. And then if you can't get both, priority would be Geary. That's my idea. Thanks.
Okay, I see a thumbs up from Mike. Anyone else? Alex's thumbs up, Dick is, and Rich and Bill. Okay, so it looks like apply for both and we'll go from there. Is that it, Ron?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good job.
All right, thank you. Okay, council, next is the ADU code amendments, and this is something we've been seeing over and over. And let's see, David, are you on? Yes.
Hello, I am here, and so is Jeff.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm actually going to start this off today, and then if council has detailed questions about the proposed amendments, then David will be able to assist with those.
Okay.
So we're starting on page 5 of your council packet, and the draft amendments that you would have seen the last time that were the minimum compliance amendments start on page 6. And just by way of introduction here, we touched on the need to continue our ADU discussions at the July 22nd council meeting, and council requested that we bring the discussion back to the next council meeting. So that's why we're here today. And we're hoping to get direction from the council on how to move forward so that we can take these amendments forward, hopefully one last time through the Planning Commission and the City Council. So if really we just wanted to provide time to answer questions, hopefully get that direction. And just for a reminder, the last time that this had went through, again, these are the minimum compliance amendments. The Planning Commission had recommended raising the minimum size of ADU, and that topic was of much debate at council. And I believe everything else had been resolved at that point, and that was the last remaining item, but I could be mistaken. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over for council discussion. And as I said, if you have detailed questions about the code, David's here to help answer those.
Okay. All right, council. So this is sort of where we left out last time, and we just never did resolve on this square footage. So, and if my memory is correct, then I recommended then to go to 800 square feet, but there wasn't support of that. Is there any support of going to 800 square feet this time or not?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. Dick's willing to go 800. Is there anyone else? So, okay. If not, then in thinking of this over, it's been 2 years and I'm very frustrated with our state legislators. And so I think no matter what, we might as well, if it's go and adopt it as the 900 square feet and live with it, because I think they are destroying enough of our single family neighborhoods. And now that it looks like HB 2001 model code is coming through, that fourplexes will not even be able to have off-street parking or duplexes off-street parking. So pretty much it's, I feel like we've just, I know me personally, and I know many citizens of Albany have just lost out with the state. So I'm very frustrated with them. I don't feel, you know, they had any qualms in supporting the bill, which was a bipartisan bill, but they almost shouldn't have any qualms in to just move into a fourplex with no off-street parking if they lived in a single family home. But that's my opinion. So with that, I would be in support of, if you want a motion to adopt this ordinance as 900 square feet.
I would move that.
Move to approve, yes.
Okay.
I think we need to take this back through the planning commission though, unfortunately, and then have another public hearing, since this is a change from what was presented before.
Planning commission
What
did
they
900.
submitted to us.
So Sean, since planning commission did support 900.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different than where I thought this might go tonight, because I thought we probably would have to go back to the planning commission. But considering that you are making a motion to adopt a plan that was approved by the planning commission, and if there's, David, correct me if I'm wrong, are there any differences in the plan that was adopted by the planning commission as opposed to what the council's adopting now?
No.
Well, what, I didn't hear you, David. What'd you say?
No, there are no other differences. It was really, at the last council, it was just a matter of the square footage.
Okay.
Okay.
So Sean, is the kind of go through
I'm comfortable with the council adopting this tonight then and not going back through the planning commission with it, because the planning commission's approved it 2 or 3 times the same way. And if the council is going to approve it as the planning commission has done this many times, I think we're within our rights to do that. So I'm comfortable with doing that.
Okay.
Okay. Bessie?
Yeah, I would say, I wanted to ask you a question about what you just said, Mayor. Did you say that they might come up with the fourplexes not requiring even off-street parking? Is that right? Okay, yeah. And another thing, and I appreciate you agreeing to this, because I know it wasn't easy. And the thing of it is it's up to 900 feet. And so there are a lot of times I don't think that 900 feet is going to be possible for some of the properties, but I do appreciate you agreeing to this. I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch of them pop up, but I guess time will tell. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope we do. I'm just very frustrated, and with the HB 2001 coming forward, we are the only in all of Lynn County that's going to have to be having these restrictions. No other city in Lynn County will have to be dealing with up to the fourplexes. So I think Lebanon will have to have the duplex only, and but we're a bigger city and we're really being punished out of it. So, but yeah. Okay, so there was
as far as staff direction goes, should we go ahead and prepare an ordinance and bring it back to you at the next meeting?
We can. What does Sean think?
Yes, that sounds like a good idea, Jeff. Or excuse me, David. Let's do that.
Okay, we'll do.
So
That covers the bases.
most Rich
Yep.
would to bring it back as the 900 square feet or on Wednesday. Okay, and that's okay with second, Alex?
Yes.
On Wednesday. Okay. So with that, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay,
I'm
I just
opposed.
think I heard one. Okay, Gabe, that was just Dick. Okay, so this will be walked on for Wednesday night then, and we'll resend out an email on that one and adjust the agenda
Okay,
and the agenda. Okay,
thank you very much.
all right, thank you. And that is it for our business council. Becky, you're up to the top.
Oh, I just want to tell Peter, thank you for sending that video for the Coast Guard. You know, they do a lot more than I thought they did, and I just love watching things like that. So I'm sure all of the other the people who have served in the service have their own videos that they could show. I'd love to see any of them. So, but that's all. Thanks, Peter.
As I get them all forward, the Navy's birthday is coming up in October.
Yes, it is.
Which one?
Showing up.
The Navy in October and the Marine Corps in November.
United States
Oh
Navy.
my gosh. We'd have to have a big cake. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, there's some videos on the Marine Corps that we can't forward and we can't send, but anyway, yeah, thanks, Peter, for that. I had a thought, and I don't know if we're into talking about budget right now and what's going on with the budget. And the question that I had was that we have a bunch of money in SDCs for the parks, and we gave a loan to the 80 the Downtown Association and those folks. Why can't we use some of that money that we have in the Parks SDC that we're not building parks with to do another interdepartment loan to police and fire?
It'd be against state law. So, but staff can that, but that you can't spend it.
It's just a thought. I mean,
Madam Mayor, you're breaking up. I couldn't really understand you.
Yeah, it's against state law on that. When SDCs have to go for capacity-driven projects that are identified in a master plan. So, I mean, it's a good thought, you know, appreciate that, Mike, but we can't spend SDCs on something that's for operations.
no, we're not spending money on it. We're not, it's a loan. It's a loan from that project. So we're not really using that money for anything else. We're not, it's a loan.
Yeah,
like we did before.
Peter,
It'd be interesting.
You'll notice that JC came on with his camera as well. So I'm going to ask him to say something in a minute here, but just in theory, just suppose it wasn't illegal, it would still be taking one-time money to fund recurring costs for the police department or the fire department, which would have the effect only of prolonging the problem, or, you know, just delaying the problem that we're already facing.
Make it worse.
I would ask JC to comment.
Yeah, so the mayor is correct. There's only certain projects and uses that you can use SDC money for. When you go towards establishing a loan, that actually leads it to any accounting that has be considered as operating. So it would basically go against your thought of it not being operating, Councilor Sykes.
Okay, I wanted to throw that out there because I had that thought, and you know, then I go back to my original thought that there shouldn't be any reason why we're collecting parks SDCs, because we can't afford to build parks because we can't afford to maintain them. So why in the heck are we collecting them? And we can't use it for anything else. So I go back to, why are we collecting them? Let's cease collecting them until we have a better plan down the road.
That is a decision I guess you could go towards, but it does allow for certain SDC projects for the revitalization of our current parks. So that is one of the approved uses. So when we do have degrading equipment, and I'm sure Kim could probably speak more eloquently as far as the projects that they have lined up, but it doesn't necessarily have to be for new parks.
Okay. All right. Anything else,
Mayor.
Mike? Peter? Yeah.
I just want to note for Councilor Sykes that tomorrow within the staff we'll be having a discussion on subsystems and the parks master plan. So we'll be coming back to you with more information about that.
Okay. And getting a feedback. Jorge, there's an RZZ that's got their mic on. I don't know if that's causing the feedback. Oh, now it's off. Okay.
Just muted.
All right. Bill, you're next on the screen.
I got a letter and a copy of a sewer bill from a friend of mine. He's in Ward 1, and I think he said he sent it to you, Sharon, also.
Yeah.
So this individual situation is he's in the city limits, but he doesn't have city water and he doesn't have city sewer. So, but he does have to pay the storm utility bill. And he said, you know, it's $8.70 a month, and he usually, you know, writes a check every 3 months or something. But he hadn't paid it for 2 months, so he owes the city $17.40. And he gets this letter that says if he doesn't pay it by the end of July, the city's going to put a lien on his property. It seems kind of ridiculous under the circumstances, but it got me to thinking, Peter, you know, if this is just some standard language that's triggered by some automatic function, or is there somebody in the billing department that really thinks it's worthwhile to put a lien for $17.40 on somebody's property? So I don't need an answer tonight, but that's worth, you know, looking into to see how we're treating people. He went on to say, you know, we all know what's going on with the economy, and his business was closed, and we'd offered some relief to people and so forth. And he's not asking for relief. He just pays it every 3 months or so rather than writing these little checks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll find out what the status of that is.
Yep, I had sent the letter off to, I think, Jeff Blaine, or Chris Bailey, so they will get on to him. He didn't leave a phone number or contact information, so I gave it to staff. So, but okay.
Peter, if you Peter, if you reach out to me, I can give you his name and account number. I'm not going to do it over the public airways here, and that's all I had, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're kind of breaking up too, so I don't know if it's connection or what here going on, but okay. Next is Rich.
Yes, we got the information from Peter about ComStat, the information. I looked to see the increases and so forth, and it made me wonder, you know, if you have 3 increase or 20 increase, or what does that look like in the scheme of things? And so I requested more information, and getting that information is highly illustrative for me, because as you're aware, if you have a 90% increase or a 50% increase in 2, you know, 50% is 4. 50% increase of 50 is a whole different number. And so when you have 10 more of something or 30 more of something, unless you know the bottom line, it doesn't put it in perspective for you. As you know, some of these things, arson, for example, was when I got the information from the chief, and I appreciate that, Chief. I was a little shocked at the amount of increased arson because the percentage is so high. Anyway, that's just my 2 bits worth. It might be a good idea to have, you know, what that increase means. And I realize ComStat is 18,000 numbers, and just adding a couple of more makes it 18,000 and a couple of more, just more work. But when you have a big increase like that, what that means might be helpful. That's all I had.
Okay, glad you had a good, safe vacation too, Rich. That's quite a trip you took. So, yeah.
Well, you know, I really like driving 80 miles an hour. I really like it. When you go there And people are not on your tail, and you don't come up against somebody all that often. It's terrible when I went from Nevada back into California, and now all of a sudden you're down there, you know, pulling on your earlobes, and oh God, will these people ever get out of the way? And you know, I paid $1.99 for gas.
Yep.
And one place in California was $3.86.
That's why I left California. That's one of the reasons I left California.
Yeah. Wow.
The central and mountain states are great for wide open spaces and roads.
Well, you know, they also have oil wells.
Yeah.
Colorado, it was Nebraska where it was so cheap. I saw all 6 of their trees, although a couple of those trees might have been tall corn plants. I'm not quite sure. But, you know, something that's 3 feet in diameter, that's, oh my God, that's a house. That's not a tree.
Yeah.
Enough fun.
Yeah. Well,
It was a good time.
oh, good.
Good.
Okay. And Alex?
So I have just one thing. I sent Peter some pictures of some vandalism that happened here in Albany, and it's he can share them if he'd like. I have no problem with that. But I'm going to put him in touch with the person that reported it. It was 2 vehicles marked with swastikas and a pickup truck with the N-word scrawled painted across the back of it, and that's a concern. Marsha Herndon's will be meeting with the lady that sends them to me tomorrow or Wednesday, but it's appalling, and I'm taken aback by it because I've been here 26 years and I've never seen that before. And so
But where was it at? What part of town?
It was in here in Albany. So I believe it's on the border of Ward 1 and Ward 2. I'm going to drive by there this evening and talk with the lady that reported it to my good friend.
So was it in the neighborhood?
Those in apartments.
Yeah. There's still no place for that. No.
Yeah.
No reason to have that kind of stuff around here.
So Peter will be talking to them as soon as I get the number to him.
It's highly unacceptable, and I hope our police officers are looking for the individuals that did it. I've seen the pictures, and they need to be punished to the fully extent of the law, because we don't need that garbage here in this city, and I won't stand for it.
Amen.
Agreed.
Amen.
Oh my gosh, that's sad. So yeah, they're welcome to move out. So
I'll help them find their way out.
Alex, is that it?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. All right, Dick.
Sorry
Sorry you had problems on.
I tried the Coast Guard. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah.
I try and talk and then you start talking, so I don't know if I'm coming across or not. Anyway, I enjoyed the Coast Guard pictures, and I was surprised to see pictures of boats there. I thought it was all helicopters in the Coast Guard. So, but I did like that speedboat that had the rubber inner tubes around it. That looked like fun. And I wanted to say, Rich, you probably paid extra so you could pump your own gas there in California.
Well, you pump your own gas everywhere except here in New Jersey.
Yes. Isn't that terrible?
Actually, no. It means you get out of there quicker. You know, I pumped my own gas for 30 years at card lock. So, you know, get with the program, get it done.
But every place is different too. You have to figure it out.
Yeah. I did lose a debit card. And for an hour or so, I was a little concerned.
Yeah.
Until I got it turned off. I put it in my pocket and evidently pulled my hand out, and it came out along with whatever else, my keys or something.
That's bad.
I checked and it got turned off. So
okay.
not a
All
biggie
right.
at this point.
Is that it, Dick?
Yes.
Okay, and I didn't have anything this evening, folks. And Peter, how about you?
No, I was going to mention what Counselor Johnson said. Since he did it so eloquently, I'll just say that with all the problems that we have facing us, you know, we have a lot of challenges. The last thing I would expect is something like that, which mars the community in that way. So that's a great big disappointment.
Betcha. Oh, horrible.
Well, especially seeing as how I say we, Albany did such a good job of a protest. Adults acting like adults, and this is just so asinine.
It's abhorrent behavior.
It is.
Yeah, it is. Okay, nothing else?
Mayor, I've got
Sean.
one thing I want to quickly say. The Friends of Historic Albany have filed an appeal to LUBA. I think Peter had it in his Friday newsletter last week. And so we received a motion to intervene today from Bill Close, who represents the Signers on this. Normally, on a case like this, how they normally work is that the city, once they get the notice of intent to appeal from the petitioner, we will prepare a record and file that record with LUBA. But the respondent, who in this case is Mr. Signer's, or Mr. M is the Signer's attorney, Bill Close, they are the ones that normally will file the brief in response to the petitioner's brief rather than the city. I wanted to make sure that the council was aware that's how we normally deal with those, and if they had any concern with that or would they want to go in a different direction. But I just wanted to let you know that, and I told Peter I would do that. So.
Okay. All right. Is that it? Anything else?
I just didn't know if there was any questions about how it worked. I was happy to answer those. So.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Any other staff? Okay. So with that, we will see all of you folks on Wednesday night right here in our homes. And with